Ladies and gentlemen, now I have the honor to give the floor to the keynote speaker, to the main speaker of this evening. And I will introduce him with a little secret. It was several years ago, 7 or 8 years, I guess, we negotiated together in the European Parliament for us Austrians to join his group at the time. It was the EFDD group. It was a Europe for Direct Democracy. And I don't know why it didn't work out in the end, but nevertheless, it was great to be able to talk and negotiate with him. He is a major player. He's a big player on the international political stage. He is Mr. Brexit, and he has fulfilled his political mission. Well done, Mr. Nigel Farage. You're a man of action who knows exactly what you want, how to get there, and you never tire of pursuing your goals. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker, the keynote and main speaker of this evening, Mr. Nigel Farage. The floor is yours. Thanks for having me here in Chicago.
Well, Harold, thank you for those kind words, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here, and I must say, just what an impressive organisation Heartland is. The values that you cherish, the campaigns that you fight, the vigour with which you stand up to the consensus crackpot view. And so it's been great to be here. And can I just say, a very, very happy 40th birthday. Well done, Heartland. Brilliant. But there's more to do. There's far more to do. Now, I know that to stand in Chicago and talk about colonialism may not necessarily be popular. But maybe the time has come for a bit of reverse colonialism. Maybe it's time that Heartland came and set up in Britain and Europe and brought some of the wisdom that you brought to the American debate. And you know what? We'd love to see you established, set up, giving us your wisdom, giving us your guidance, giving us your discipline. I'd love to see Heartland on the other side of the pond. I really, really, truly would. Now, Chicago for me is a very, very special place. In fact, as a guy that spent 22 years trading commodities, Chicago is a spiritual home. I spent 9 years working for a Chicago-based firm, having previously worked for a Wall Street company. And I think back to what Chicago was in the 90s, the early noughties, the S&P pit, the bond pit, live hogs, orange juice, these seething masses of humanity, which to the outside world looked like a complete mystery. How did it all work? Let me tell you, from the inside world, we didn't really know either. But it was all just the most enormous fun. And then computers and algorithms came along. So my relationship with your great country goes back over 40 years. My entire working life, before I got involved in politics, was working for American companies. I've crisscrossed the Atlantic. I've crisscrossed that pond perhaps as much as almost anybody else alive. And I very much believe that the cultures between our two nations, economically, socially, sometimes politically, are perhaps closer now than they've been at any point in the last 250 years. Just think about it. We listen to the same music. We watch the same films. We read the same books. And perhaps most pertinently tonight, we face the same challenges between the indoctrination of our kids at college, at university, the rising tide of woke, the levels of net zero fanaticism, as showed with Biden's so-called Inflation Reduction Act. Have you ever heard of a piece of legislation more inappropriately named than the doling out of hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidy for solar and wind? But we'll come back to all of that in just a moment. We face the same internal threats that within mainstream media and within left-wing politics, there are those that literally, genuinely want to destroy everything we stand for and everything that we hold dear. And externally, we of course see what is happening in the Middle East, Ukraine, and goodness knows what comes in Taiwan. So I promise you, the debates and concerns that you've got are very similar to the debates and concerns that we've got on our side of the pond, not just in Britain, but across the rest of mainland Europe too. Now, after my 20 years in commodities, I looked at what was happening with this new globalist structure called the European Union, and I thought, I can't put up with this. I can't put up with this. And I found that the trouble was that every big business in Britain, every trade union in Britain, mainstream media, and all of our political parties thought it was better to be members of it than to be outside of it. And I was that soldier. I was almost a lone voice for years. I was the figure of much fun and much mockery. But I fought and I fought and I fought. And UKIP, the party that I led, grew and grew and grew. And in the end, we achieved perhaps our biggest constitutional victory in 300 years in 2016, when we left the European Union and got back our independence. And it was fantastic. Now, I had to fight them again in 2019 when they decided they weren't going to do what we wanted. But in the end, in 2020, we left. And I decided, do you know what? That's it. I've been fighting this battle for 27 years. I've taken more abuse than anybody in modern Western politics until Trump came along. Until Trump, I love Trump being there because it takes the heat off people like me. It's wonderful. And so for the last few years, I've been outside politics, and life has been terrific. I've taken up a career as a TV broadcaster with GB News, and I've managed to win News Presenter of the Year 2 years in a row in the United Kingdom. And that's been good. And I've been making money. And the family are all grown up. I turned 60 earlier this year. Had a hell of a good party, I can tell you. My first 2 grandkids have been born in the last few months. And life's been amazing. And then along comes a general election. And I say to myself, I'm not going back into politics. You can keep it. I don't need the hard work. I don't need the abuse. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to bloody do it. I'm going to bloody do it. I'm going to get back involved. And you know why I did it? I did it because the independence and the Brexit that I fought for was betrayed by a Conservative party in Britain that is conservative in name only and never conservative in action. They are frauds. They are a total disgrace. And I tell you something, if you didn't have Donald Trump, your Republican Party here would be exactly the same. Exactly the same. The world over, the influence of the big corporate businesses, the influence of the big banks, conservative parties have gradually, sadly, become globalist parties. So I got involved for that. But there's an even bigger reason why I decided I'd get back involved in politics. And hey, you know what? For a brand new party, in the space of 4 weeks, to win millions of votes and get seats in Parliament, I tell you what, folks, we're on our way. And the bookmakers' odds on us winning the next general election are coming down every single week. So, if you believe in me, you better get your money on while the value's good in the market, because it's all going to change, and I sense actually we are going to do something pretty remarkable. Now, the even bigger reason I've decided to throw myself back into this is there is something actually more fundamental at stake than how Brexit's been delivered, than how the Conservative Party in Britain or the GOP at times behave, but something far bigger, far more fundamental, between everything that we have built, developed, fought for, sacrificed things for, that we, in our hearts and our souls, believe in. And I'm talking about Western civilization. I'm talking about the underpinning of a Judeo-Christian culture, which is the fundamental that underpins everything in our lives, our democratic systems, our belief that family is the right unit in which to bring up children and develop them into adults and carry on our way of life, our belief in communities where we share common values, where we're prepared to help each other, and ultimately country, something so fundamental that it has borders, it controls who comes in, and we feel an allegiance to it that is so great that in extremists, we're prepared to actually put on military uniform and go out and defend it. I'm talking, folks, about our way of life. I'm talking about everything we're proud of, everything we believe in, and I've come back into politics because all of that is directly under threat by modern day Marxism, by those conservative cowards who've not been prepared to stand up and defend the right values. And I'll be damned if we lose all of that without me standing up and fighting, and I hope you feel the same way too. Thank you. That is how important this is. The stakes could not be higher. And I'm delighted. And Harold's here from Austria, where the conservative movement is doing very well. And we're seeing the rise of conservative movements right across the whole of Europe. The beginning in my country of the Reform Party, and we will eclipse and overtake those that masquerade as conservatives. And these things are all good. But here's the truth. The absolute truth is that just as 100 years ago, Great Britain was the world's dominant country, we're not anymore. You guys are. America is the leader of the free world. And if America falls, we all fall. So we need a Donald Trump victory on November the 5th, of this year. So I hope that all of you, are doing everything you can to ensure that he wins. It's not been the easiest week for Trump supporters. Harris did better at that debate than any of us thought that she would. But you know what? In a war, you win battles, you lose battles, but the war goes on. And I just think that provided Donald Trump sticks to policy, and this is what matters, isn't it? The border, 9 million, minimum, 9 million illegal immigrants have crossed the border since Biden became president. Law and order. I mean, are these reports I read about the number of shootings in Chicago every weekend true? It is absolutely terrifying, that level of societal and social decline. And remember, it was Trump that cut taxes. It was Trump, as Harold said before me, that didn't go to war. It's Trump who brought forward the Abraham Accords. Can you think of a more remarkable foreign policy achievement in your lives than that? Any other president would have been given the Nobel Prize. So what happens here really, really matters. I do sense, folks, despite the lunacy that we've seen, and goodness me, we've seen it. I mean, can you believe it? You know, a bloke puts on a dress and gets sent to a woman's prison. I mean, I can't work it out. Harold talked about genders earlier. Well, I don't know. I mean, 7 genders. I mean, a friend of mine was called up by the head teacher of his kid's school. He said, "We're very worried about Billy. Very worried. He can't name all 69 genders. We're very concerned." I mean, I joke, but we all know what's going on, don't we? I mean, we literally are poisoning the minds of our kids. So I am part of the fight back. I've been involved in this now for over 30 years. I meet Tea Party veterans. Well, they're just a bunch of kids compared to me. I've been doing this forever because I believe in family, I believe in community, I believe in country, and I also believe that if you look at the long sweep of human civilization, that ultimately good wins over evil. Good wins over evil. The problem is how long that battle and that journey takes. And I'll finish up with some warnings for you. Now, you give us lots of things, and we give you lots of things. Many American trends and cultures come to our shores. You've given us woke. Thank you very much indeed. But we've returned the compliment in the form of a young man about to turn 40 with his wife, who's living on the West Coast of America. She's a former TV star. They bring their own peculiar brand of misery, of victimhood. I mean, can you imagine how awful it must be to grow up in a royal palace? I mean, goodness gracious me. Now, you gave us woke, we've given you Prince Harry and Meghan, and they're yours to keep, I promise you. We don't want them back. We don't want them back under any circumstances. But one thing that we've got that you must not get, and I think for Heartland, of all the groups I could speak to, you would understand this perhaps more than anybody. In the space of the last 6 days in my country, and my country has reduced carbon dioxide emissions more than any other country in the world. Our politicians are enormously proud of the fact that despite the fact we only produce 0.8% of man-made carbon dioxide, and despite the fact that man-made carbon dioxide is only about 3% of annual global production of carbon dioxide. And despite the fact none of this makes anybody difference at all the while the Chinese are building 80 new coal-fired power stations every year, we have reduced our carbon dioxide emissions by more than any other country in the world. Isn't that wonderful? And in the last 6 days, the largest oil refinery in the country, it's been announced, is closing. Our last primary steelmaker in Port Talbot in South Wales will close with the loss of a further 3,000 jobs. And a proposal to open a deep coal mine that would produce the purest anthracite, which of course, unlike lignite, burns at a very low CO2 and sulfurous output, has been declined. We will not be mining our coal. We will not be refining our oil. We will not be producing our gas or oil. We won't even be refining it. We'll be importing it. And that is the lunacy that we've gone down. We now have to import 15% of our electricity from undersea cables from our so-called friends in Europe. We've been fighting the French for 1,000. I mustn't go there. I mustn't go there. We're all friends now, you know. I mean, energy independence, military strength, culture, belief in family, country and nation, these are the things to fight for. We have gone crazily down that road. Please don't follow us. I know that you, the thought leaders here at Heartland, will do your best to make sure that America, despite a few Biden lunacies, won't go down that route. Let's get Trump back. Let's drill, baby, drill. Let's make America independent. Let's make America great again, and let's make the Western world great again. And thank you for hosting me this evening. Do we have time for some questions or not?
Sure.
We did. Great, brilliant.
She would ask.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, please be seated, we have a little bit more to do. As the chairman of the Heartland Institute and its de facto general counsel, let me note that the Heartland organization is recognized by the Internal Revenue Service under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code and does not endorse candidates for public office in this country. So I want to thank Nigel Farage and I want to thank Harold Wolimski for coming to the United States tonight and giving us some political advice that they're free to do. I don't know about you, but I was listening. Now, let me return the favor. There's nothing that prohibits us from participating in British politics as far as Farage for Prime Minister! MP Farage has kindly consented to hold a surgery here tonight. I think that's what you call constituent meetings. And we'll take a few questions.
Brilliant.
May we raise the lights, please, so that Mr. Farage and I can see who is in the crowd.
Yes, to ask a question.
We've got some roving microphones, so come on, hands up.
If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand.
Raise your hand. And here, I see a hand up over here to my right.
Loads of hands.
Raise your hand. Announce. Please share your name and where you're from, so that Nigel knows to whom he's speaking.
Let's go right there.
Over here.
Right there. I'll moderate this.
Hi, Jim Economos. We hear a lot about the immigrants coming in. They're saying in London the most popular birth name now is Mohammed. Can you expound on what's going on there and what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, I mean, look, here I am in America. a country built on immigration. And to some extent, the UK, we've had hordes of Romans and Vikings and goodness knows else who coming into the country. The thing about immigration is, number one, it has to be of a size that's manageable. But number two, if immigration comes without cultural integration, you, boy, have a problem. All right? So people came to America, they became American, they learned the language, they swore their oath, their kids became Americans, and it's been the same for us until, and by the way, I am not for one moment denouncing all Muslims, because 3/4 of the Muslims in Britain, do you know what? Live like I live. Want their kids to do well. But a growing minority of Muslims who've come to Britain, living in inner cities, bring with them values that we find unacceptable. Values towards women in particular, and women's place in society. And the fact that 25% of 18 to 24-year-old young British male Muslims think jihad is an acceptable concept shows you the depth of trouble that we're in. And this is a problem that will dog us for many, many, many decades to come. There are specimens of this in America, especially in Michigan, but you do not need to make the same fundamental mistakes that we've made, and I urge you not to do that. Think about all immigration into America responsibly. You have good people, have people that will learn your language, accept your culture, integrate with you. If you don't, you'll finish up in the mess that we are. And I'm quite fearful for the future of much of Europe because of this specific problem. Thank you.
Over here. And tell us your name, please. Put your hand up so I can see you. I see. Over here.
Yes, hello. Brent Hamanchek from Human Events. Question for you. After more than 100 years of people in the West becoming more and more reliant upon government and assistance from government, are people in the West really strong enough and willing enough to want freedom and the responsibility that comes with it, or might they have to have it almost forced upon them at this point?
Well, it's very interesting. Ronald Reagan came up earlier, and I remember Reagan, giving one of those amazing speeches to the nation, saying, "Look, there are too many young people here who aren't working, and we're giving them benefits." And he brought in workfare. That to get benefits, you had to go and do some work. And oh my goodness gracious me. I mean, the reaction of the New York Times and others, you'd have thought Reagan had brought back slavery. But a funny thing happened. Rather than clearing out swamps and building roads to get their benefits, do you know what they did? They went out and found jobs. So I think, and you're right, and I never thought in America I'd see European-style welfareism, but I see it. I see it now in this country, absolutely everywhere. And the welfare state was designed to be a safety net. A civilized society didn't let people get so poor they'd starve, but that safety net becomes almost like a drug that's being pumped in the arm and then becomes a glass ceiling on aspiration. So there are two things we have to do to break the size of the state and the increasing dependence of individuals upon it. And it's called the old carrot and stick. And the carrot is you have to make sure that those earning up to average wages are paying as lower taxes as is possible. The incentive to get off benefits and go to work. And the stick has to be that if you're fit and able-bodied, we're not going to go on subsidizing your drug-smoking lifestyle forever. All right? And I'm afraid that's what it's going to have to come to. We're going to need to have leaders with the moral courage that Reagan had to say to people, actually work is a good thing and we will not fund your lazy lifestyle. And if that sounds tough, it's what it's got to be.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Jeannie, and I'm here with my friend Christine. She brought me here. And on the way here on the train, we agreed that in this world today, the number one thing lacking is courage, and the number one thing ruling is hypocrisy. And so we thank you for your courage. And we also agreed that you're brilliant and beautiful. And she has a crush. And we're hoping you'll take a picture with her because you're beautiful and so is she. Thank you.
I will, once this is over, be making my way directly to your table, be in no doubt about that. Why not? Okay.
Nigel.
What are we? Yes, sir.
I don't think you're going to get anywhere with climate change in Westminster until you get somebody over there like Will Happer or Richard Linson to give a kindergarten level talk on climate change to the House of Commons and the House of Lords. So what are you going to do about it?
No, listen, when it comes to climate change and when it comes to the net zero policies that we're pursuing, they're not going to listen. None of them are going to listen. You know, in the absence of God, and God has really, religion has really disappeared in British public life dramatically in the last 20 years. And I sense it's happening in America as well, actually. Am I wrong about that? No, I sense it's happening. And when people start to lose belief, then something has to replace it. And climate change. Climate change has almost become the new religion of the left. It's in fact almost become a mutation of Marxism. That here is the way we can control people, here is the way we can tax people, but tell them all the while it's for their good and for the good of the country and the good of the world. So no. There's no point educating the current set of MPs in Westminster. There's no good even trying with what masquerades as the Conservative Party. My job, and it may be ambitious, but don't forget, when I said I'd take Britain out of the European Union, no one believed it was possible, which is why it was such fun the day after we left to get up in the European Parliament. Emergency meeting, they called it. I tell you what, they were not happy bunnies on that morning, I got to tell you. I was able to get up and say, when I came here 17 and a half years ago, I said I'd lead a campaign to take the United Kingdom out of the European Union. What I said, you all laughed at me, but you're not laughing now, are you? And so my next mission, and it may seem improbable, what I intend to do over the next 4 years, you may think I'm absolutely bonkers, but what I intend to do over the next 4 years is to replace the 200-year-old Conservative Party with something that actually stands up, believes in values, and I'm going to try and fight and win the next general election. That is my plan.
Doug. Hello, Nigel. My name's Douglas Glick, and my question goes back to some of what Dr. Bhattacharya was saying earlier and the attacks on freedom of speech here and in Europe. Those who spend time on social media, myself included, have been paying a lot of attention to the new law that's been put into place and the threats that are going out, that things that we or people we know may publish on a social media forum can be arrested once they visit the UK. And I didn't know if you, I'm giving advice to my friends and family saying, don't go because you have a high enough profile that you may fall under somebody's baleful eye and end up in trouble. I was just hoping you'd give us some thoughts.
Yeah, look, I mean, the attack on free speech is in full flight in the United Kingdom. I mean, as we discussed earlier, the pandemic was the worst. I mean, any criticism of government policy during the pandemic, and you were shut down. You know, I had no trouble with the lockdowns at all. None at all. I completely ignored them. Completely ignored them. The police kept knocking on my door. It was lovely. The roads were empty. You could bomb along the motorways. It was fabulous. No, as I said, I'll be damned if I'm going to be locked in my house. You know, I mean, even when Britain went through the war and the bombing and the Blitz and government had to take a bigger role, we didn't lose our freedom. So, yeah, I notice on Facebook particularly, people who like my posts get suspended. I don't get suspended. Perhaps I'm a bit too big for them to try and knock down. So, yes, I'm worried about this. But all I will say is this. Elon Musk taking over Twitter, paying the most ridiculous price for it, but hey, you know, when you're worth 500 billion, I suppose it doesn't really matter, does it? Elon Musk is a hero. Thank the Lord for Elon Musk. Because what happened here, and I was here a lot, in September, October, November 2020, I was here a lot supporting my friend. You might have heard of him. He got a little house in Florida, built the odd skyscraper in New York. Great guy, so great, it's incredible. And I was here a lot. And I was just gobsmacked that the relationship between Burisma, Hunter Biden, but the phone calls that the vice president had been on, I mean, it's one of the most open and shut cases of potential corruption I've ever seen in my life. And yet the whole thing was closed down, wasn't it? Yeah. The whole thing was closed down. And now, with Elon Musk there, that couldn't possibly happen again. And it's a bit what I was saying earlier. You know, things look awful, but there are signs that the pendulum is beginning to come back in our direction. Look, you know, you've got your First Amendment. You know, free speech is absolutely fundamental to everything that Western civilization stands for. I will be a great champion for free speech. The lovely thing is, as a member of Parliament now, this Parliament, I did 20 years in the other one, I have something called parliamentary privilege, which means I can say what the hell I like and they can't do anything about it. So watch this space, expect more. But look, you're right to be worried. The pandemic was a real wake-up call for anyone that believes in liberty and freedom. I think long-term, you know, and you, of course, in America, because of your state system, you had Florida, Texas take a very different approach. Illinois, I mean, it was absolutely crazy. In fact, little secret, I came to Illinois in May 2021, and I was working with a grassroots group of Republicans. We held a meeting about 20 miles out of town that I know was an illegal meeting under Illinois state law at that time. We had about 300 people in the room. And cops, you want to come and get me, guys? I'm here. So, no, we simply can't have this stuff ever happening again. And the long-term psychological and physical damage that those lockdowns in Europe have done to young, middle-aged and old is something that can never be allowed to happen again. And it was because they closed down debate, they were able to get away with it. Musk, I think, now that he's there, redresses that balance. Now, they're all going to get bored. Should we just do two more, something like that?
Yes, we'll do two more.
Two more.
Right here, and then the last one will be out there, right here.
Right here.
My name is Michael. I seem to have forgotten my last name.
Believe it or not, guys, He's got the same surname as me. It's unbelievable.
Nigel, I want to ask a question sincerely. I think everyone in this room, it's kind of the elephant in the room, knowing you're very close to Donald Trump, and all of us, I think, know we saw people throw stuff at you, and we saw an assassination attempt. When you heard the news on Donald Trump, an attempted assassination, what went through your head, and how soon did you talk to him? You know, kind of walk us through that scenario.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was in the general election. The first day I announced I was going to do the general election, I had a milkshake chucked in my face. You know, 2 days after that, I had cement from a cement mixer put into a pot and thrown at me quite violently when I was on a campaign bus. And that was just the first 2 days of being out of the campaign. I mean, what it is to be popular, you know. It's so difficult, this, because the modern day politician doesn't go and meet the public. You know, they hide behind lecterns. They hide behind pre-prepared speeches. Everything's scripted. They never go out and meet the public, whereas I've always thrived on just going out into the street, just at random, you know, market day in an English town, or I have to go around all the pubs drinking. I mean, it's such hard work. All those pints is a nightmare, you know. And Trump's similar. Trump is similar. Trump loves that interaction with people. You know, those rallies, and when he's finished a rally, it might take him 20 minutes to leave the catwalk because he's talking to people. And I mean, unbelievable to watch it. And for those that engage with him, they'll remember that for the rest of their lives. You know, that's his impact. So I'm now surrounded by security in the UK to an extent that I never have been before. I hate it. I hate it. So even my interaction with the public has been not stopped completely, but reduced. When I heard the news that Trump had been shot, I was in a car. I'd been to a 125th anniversary of a cricket and tennis club. It was their big black tie dinner. So I'm not quite sure what state I was in to receive information at that moment in time. No, I mean, I was horrified. And then when I saw the footage of the head, the bullet, I mean, I didn't used to believe in miracles. Now I do. And what happened was a complete and utter miracle. But you think, and I'm not going to say any more than this, all right? But you think, and I've been through a couple of near-death experiences, plane crashes, stuff like that I've been through. The problem for him is having the Secret Service, having failed him so completely. But that guy was 125 yards away on a forward-sloping roof. And he'd been up there for 5.5 minutes. And the trouble for Donald is, every time he leaves the front door, he's now going to think, is someone out there going to do that to me? Just imagine living with that. Just imagine living with that burden. Just think what the impact of that is on his family, his friends, those close to him, and all around him. It is. I know America's been through these awful periods before. Back in the 60s, we had a horrible spate of these things. It's pretty awful. And I tell you what, Mike, what really worries me is, above all, we need good people to put themselves forward for public office. We need good people at town level, at state level, at county level, at every level. We need good people to come forward who believe in the same basic Christian ethics that we believe in, who believe in the same values, you know, the Constitution that you have and everything else. We need these good people to come forward. But they ain't going to come forward if they're scared. And this is why law and order matters. It's why values matter. It's why, and I answered the question earlier on, stopping terrorism coming into our countries matters. It's by stopping global war, by being strong militarily, matters. No easy answers to any of this. Do you know what? You can go back 2,000 years. You can look at, you can chart the successes and failures that we've had as a species on this planet. There's never been a period of time that was easy. But ultimately, and I'm going to finish with this point, you'll love this. I'm going to finish with this point. and I'm going to quote Reagan again, because I do think he is actually a hero for this movement, a hero for those of us that believe in true conservative values, a hero for those of us that believe in being patriotic and believing in our nation and our family and everything about our culture. And Reagan was right when he said that freedom is not something we can take for granted. We have to perpetually fight for freedom. We have to perpetually, every generation, Reagan said, has to fight for freedom and liberty. And that's the job that I've been doing for a long time. I briefly stepped out of the frontline trenches. I'm now back with my tin helmet on. And I hope you'll come and join me, and thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Nigel. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the segue I'm about to.
Nigel.
May I ask you again to be seated? We're very nearly finished with this very long evening, but I hope you agree that the evening was very worthwhile. And I'm sorry to the people to whom we did not get with questions, but time is fleeting. I want to thank Nigel Farage and Harold Wolimski and everyone who participated in tonight's meeting for inspiring us, and we thank them. Nigel Farage just spoke of the importance of the people who are in the arena, the people who step forward to hold and to take and to seek public office. That's not an easy thing. We have some citizens in the room, some Americans, not just sovereign voters. We're all sovereign voters in this room, but we have some people who currently hold public office, executive, legislative, and judicial. May I please ask the public office holders in the room, if whatever level of government, to rise and let us see you and thank you. Here's Judge John Curry. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, may I ask those of you who are currently candidates, who are seeking elective public office, would you please rise? Right here. I see Oregon Senate candidate Noah Robinson. Who are you, sir? Just next. Who are you? Yes, you. Gurney Township Trustee Dave Ulrich. You, sir. Very good, Rusty. I know Maria McCarthy running for judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County is here. Was there someone over here? We want to thank you. Have I omitted anybody? Thank you for, as Theodore Roosevelt would say, being the person in the arena, taking the slings and arrows and doing it for the right reasons. Finally, I'm sorry Joe Bast is not in the room to see this, but we are, there he is, we are believers in the power of the free market. Would everybody here who is a job creator, the owner of a business, or employed by a private enterprise, or an investor in a private enterprise of any kind, would you please rise? The private market, the free enterprise. If you're involved in free enterprise, on your feet. All right, you are also heroes. You are heroes. You're the kind of people who make the world turn around, go round in freedom. You make it succeed. So thank you for doing what you do. And now all of you, yes, Listen, everybody stand up for your First Amendment rights, go home and rest the weekend and get fighting on Monday. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Well.